Oh my God, do somebody please say it ain't so. The NBA Finals are finally about to be here, and if you ask me personally, I don't think Jalen Brunson is going to make it.
Both teams involved have a very good chance of winning it all, and I'll go over both, but I have to start this video by talking about the team that has been sitting around waiting to know who their opponents will be, and the team that everyone feels like is the biggest underdog in this series, and that's the Eastern Conference champion New York Knicks. I've been trying to place a huge emphasis on the Knicks because I know the Western Conference Finals was the most captivating finals to watch, but despite the fact that the Knicks are the underdog in this series, they are the hottest team in all of sports right now, and it's going to have to be proven to me that they can actually lose. The Knicks are coming into this series riding an 11-game playoff winning streak, including sweeps over the Philadelphia 76ers in the second round, and a much more surprisingly dominant sweep over the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals. There's a lot of reasons for that. We previously talked about Mike Brown's role in this and how he's adjusting on the fly, but I have to give a huge shout out to the best player on the New York Knicks, Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson has been absolutely ridiculous in these playoffs. He's always been one of the biggest playoff risers in the league, but he's taken it to another level this year. In the 14 playoff games that New York has played thus far, Brunson is averaging 26.9 points, 6.6 assists, and 2.8 rebounds per game. He's been the motor of the New York Knicks' unstoppable offense during this winning streak. Mike Brown literally created a game plan during the Eastern Conference Finals surrounding Jalen Brunson, attacking the Cavs' poor defensive backcourt, and it worked to perfection. Brunson is the guy in New York, and if he leads them to a championship this year, I don't think there's any denying that in 4 short years, he would have already cemented himself as the greatest New York Knick of all time. Yes, over Patrick Ewing, over Carmelo Anthony, over everybody. He has completely changed the basketball culture in New York City, and a ring would be the perfect cherry on top. Now, we got to give credit where it's all due. This isn't Jalen Brunson single-handedly carrying the New York Knicks to the NBA Finals. The Knicks as a whole have been playing near flawless basketball, and the rest of the team deserves their flowers too. Karl Anthony Towns has completely switched up his game, playing more of a Nikola Jokic or Alperen Şengün-like role on offense, where he's been running the offense up top and removing the rim protecting threats from the paint, which will be the biggest part of this series and why these two teams match up so well. On top of Karl Anthony Towns, you have guys like Mikal Bridges finally living up to the hype of his acquisition. Josh Hart is playing his role to perfection as he usually does. OG Anunoby has been one of the most efficient 3-and-D players the league has to offer, and even Landry Shamet and Jose Alvarado have had some huge roles off the Knicks bench, with Shamet especially being a spark off the bench, averaging 10 points on a ridiculous 11 for 12 shooting from behind the arc in New York's sweep of the Cleveland Cavaliers. That in of itself is absurd. All of these studs coming together and playing the best basketball of their lives, along with elite coaching from Mike Brown, has made the 2026 New York Knicks one of the most dominant teams in NBA history. Through the Eastern Conference side of the bracket, the Knicks' average margin of victory was a whopping 19.4 points per game, which is by far the highest in NBA history. Are you kidding me? They have completely dismantled every team that they've run into during these playoffs, and they've done it with adversity. Outside of the first round where New York beat Atlanta in 6 games, they've swept their other 2 matchups, giving them a ton of rest in between rounds, which is ironic because the one issue the New York Knicks had last year was the fact that Tom Thibodeau did not believe in rest. He believed in playing his best players big minutes, and he rarely tapped into his bench role players. What makes that crazy is that every opponent that New York has and will face in the playoffs has come off of a 7-game series. Philadelphia came off of a 7-game series against the Boston Celtics, where they came back down from 3-1. Cleveland had just beaten Detroit in 7 games, and now they're about to go into the NBA Finals with a week of rest after the Western Conference Finals went to 7 games as well. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is up for interpretation, but regardless, the Knicks have done everything right so far, and now they're only 4 wins away from their first NBA championship since 1973.
Mike Brown might be the greatest coach of all times, next to Coach Pop. He's the reason why LeBron James developed into the superstar he is. A lot of people give him credit for those Golden State Warriors championships. So many teams, so many players he influenced. They need to keep giving him his flowers, rather if the Knicks win or lose.
Now, everybody's handing Jalen Brunson the keys to this whole run, and he's earned every inch of it. But the guy who actually built the car that he's driving, he was getting fired in the middle of last season. Mike Brown is a two-time coach of the year, and I am gonna give him his flowers because it's really important that we pay attention to his story. The man has 4 championship rings as an assistant, 1 with the 2003 Spurs, 3 more sitting on Steve Kerr's bench in Golden State. He coached LeBron, he coached Kobe Bryant and Dwight Howard, although he technically coached Dwight Howard for 4 games. But he's run his own NBA teams for the better part of 2 decades, and somehow he might also be the most fired good coach that the league has ever seen. Cleveland fired him twice, the Lakers fired him just 5 games into a season, and then Sacramento, the franchise he dragged to its first playoff trip in 16 years, the franchise whose culture he completely changed, the franchise that had just handed him a contract extension, fired him in December of 2024 after a 13-18 start. That's the guy New York handed the keys to last summer. And to get him, the Knicks did something that made half of their fan base lose their minds. They fired Tom Thibodeau, coming off of the best Knicks season in 25 years. Think about how wild that is. Tibbs went 226 and 174 in New York. He took a franchise that had been a punchline for a generation and walked it all the way to its first conference finals since the year 2000. Days later, he was gone, with team president Leon Rose putting it in writing that the organization was focused on a championship. That was ice cold and polarizing, but right now, that firing looks like a stroke of genius, because the man they replaced him with just took this team around further. So what did Mike Brown actually change? The ironic part about this is the one thing he changed isn't the reason why he was hired to begin with. Brown got brought in to modernize the offense and survive the grind of an 82-game season. The book on these Knicks said the real problem lived on the other end of the floor. Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns are, to put it kindly, not defensive stoppers or defensive enforcers of any magnitude, and they have to share the court for 40 minutes a night. Every season preview asked the same question with a straight face. How do you win a title hiding 2 defensive liabilities at the most important spots on the floor?
I know everybody is opposed to breaking up Cat and Brunson, but there are defensive shortcomings, and you want to be able to play your 2 best players on the court at the same time.
That was supposed to be the thing that sank them. Brown's answer was to turn them into the best defense in the playoffs, and the numbers are genuinely stupid. In the beginning of January, the Knicks defense ranked 18th in the league. By the end of the regular season, they'd climbed to a top 7 defense and a top 5 net rating. Then the playoffs hit and they cranked it up to a 103.9 defensive rating. Stretch that over a full season and it wouldn't just lead the NBA, it would blow past the number that the defending champion OKC Thunder put up. The worst defending star duo in basketball turned into a brick wall in the postseason, when offenses are supposed to be at their absolute nastiest. For anybody who doesn't live in the box scores, a 103.9 means New York is giving up under 104 points per 100 trips down the floor. In the playoffs, where every possession essentially turns into a knife fight, that's a championship grade number. And the kicker, Brown gives a real chunk of the credit to Jalen Brunson. Yeah, the guy that nobody pictures as a defender. He told reporters that people sleep on that part of his game.
Jalen's a good defender, and obviously a lot of people are sleep on that. I don't know why they have for years, but he's competitive, he's feisty, he's strong.
The little guard who was supposed to be the target became part of the solution. So put the whole thing together. A coach who couldn't keep a job to save his life, scooped up off of a mid-season firing, handed a roster everybody swore had a fatal flaw, and he's 4 wins away from a ring with a defense that would make Pat Riley proud. Here's a fact that should not make any sense. The Knicks have the best offense in these playoffs. They've also got the best defense in these playoffs. And over their last 11 games, they put up the biggest point differential of any team in NBA history, regular season or postseason. Nobody has ever been this dominant over a stretch this long. So you'd think that Las Vegas would be falling over itself to back them. But no, odds makers have put New York as an underdog in the finals, in the opener and the series. And it didn't matter who climbed out of the West. For those wondering, against OKC, the Knicks are floating around plus 215 to win the series, and the Thunder would have been a minus 265 favorite. And against San Antonio, the matchup that everyone said was going to be the easier one, New York is still the underdog. A team that hasn't lost since April, that's blown 3 road closeout games wide open, and the books are basically shrugging at it, basically saying,
"It's a cute streak, but no matter who won the Western Conference Finals, you're still gonna lose."
So what are the doubters saying that the eyeball test isn't saying? Why do people question the New York Knicks? And the answer is easy. A lot of odds makers claim that the Knicks' path to the NBA Finals was a relatively easy one. Let's start here. The reigning Eastern Conference champion wasn't even in the bracket. Tyrese Halliburton tore his Achilles in Game 7 of last year's finals and missed the entire season. The Pacers, the team that ran all the way to Game 7 of the NBA Finals a year ago, never threw a single punch this spring. And then there's Boston, the team that's owned the East for half a decade, the same one that ended these exact Knicks back in 2024. They lost in the first round to the Sixers, and Jason Tatum, who pulled off a borderline miraculous Achilles comeback just to suit up, tweaked his knee in Game 6 and watched Game 7 in a hoodie. The Celtics were gone before the second round even started. And then you top it off with this. The number 1 seed Detroit didn't even reach the conference finals. Cleveland bounced them in round 2. So you trace New York's actual road to the finals, the 6th-seeded Hawks, the 7th-seeded Sixers, and the 4th-seeded Cavs. Not one healthy, fully loaded contender in the bunch. And smart people called this back in October before a single game tipped off. With Tatum and Halliburton down, the East was wide open, and the Knicks were the team built to walk through it. So is there an asterisk on this? Well, not really, because it cuts both ways. Let's not pretend that the Knicks tiptoed through a JV bracket either. The Cavs team they swept had just survived a brutal 7-game slugfest with the top-seeded Pistons. That's a real team, and the Knicks didn't simply squeak by them. They won 4 straight by double digits and dropped 130 in the clinching game. You can only beat who lines up across from you. A healthy Boston or a healthy Indiana wasn't walking through that door no matter what New York did about it. My honest take is the asterisk crowd is half right, but they're completely missing the point. Yeah, the path was a little easier, but that doesn't make this team a fraud. And here's the part that actually matters. The Knicks are about to run into their first opponent in 2 months that's flat out better than them. So the question here isn't whether the road was easy, it's whether they can survive the first genuinely hard thing they've seen since the calendar said April. One thing quietly working in their favor while they wait is this isn't just rest, it's repair. That week plus off is letting OG Anunoby's hamstring get right before the most important series of his life. And OG Anunoby is the man that is always chasing the opposing team's best wing around all night long. As hot as the New York Knicks are, if there's any team that can shut down their momentum, it's the freaking San Antonio Spurs. The Knicks would have run into a juggernaut either way, but I'd argue that San Antonio matches up against New York perfectly. The San Antonio Spurs are 4 wins away from their first ring since 2014, and if they pull this off, the rest of the league should be terrified. Not because Victor Wembanyama is telling his teammates to attack the opposing team when it's warranted.
Kelly Olynyk checks in as well. Fans react, break it up. Mason Plumlee with the elbow in the back. Bismack Biyombo. So, look, everything that says given us everything so far.
But it's because this could be the start of a generational dynasty. The Spurs are already this special, and they still have one of the youngest cores in all of basketball. I'll talk about the entire core, but there is no finals basketball for the Spurs without Victor Wembanyama. So let's focus on him for a second. I don't care about the fact that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander just won 2 straight MVPs, or the fact that Nikola Jokic was putting up video game numbers this year. Victor Wembanyama is currently the best basketball player in the world. And I don't think it's even up for debate now that he's toppled the oh so mighty Oklahoma City Thunder and their team of referees. Wemby is coming off of a season where he averaged 25 points, 11.5 rebounds, 3.1 assists, and a ridiculous 3.1 blocks per game, earning him his first of what seems like many Defensive Player of the Year awards, becoming the first player in NBA history to ever win that award unanimously. It was no secret when he declared for the NBA draft that he was was a generational prospect, but I'm not sure that anybody could have predicted how much of an impact he's had in just his third year as a pro. I mean, this guy is in the midst of his first ever playoff run, and in that time frame, he already has more playoff points than Joel Embiid, more rebounds than Tim Duncan, more three-pointers made than Dirk Nowitzki, and more blocks than freaking Hakeem Olajuwon all did in that same time frame. That is simply inhumane. We have never and will never see a player like Victor Wembanyama ever again. And now he's just 4 games away from winning his first championship at just 22 years old, which is something we haven't really seen since Dwayne Wade led the Heat to a championship at just 24 years old all the way back in 2006. This is a historic run from Victor Wembanyama, but it's not just him. He's joined by a plethora of young stars that make up the best young core I've seen in a very long time. Second fiddle on this team is Stephon Castle, who after winning Rookie of the Year in 2025 is currently on a superstar trajectory in this league, especially in the playoffs where he's averaging 19.4 points, 6.7 assists, and 4.9 rebounds per game on well above average efficiency. Then after him is arguably my favorite player to watch in all of basketball right now, and that's Dylan Harper. Dylan Harper has thrived in his role as the Spurs' sixth man, and when De'Aaron Fox was down with an injury against OKC, he stepped up big time, playing a major role in San Antonio's series victory. Plus, his layup package is absolutely insane. Dylan Harper truly looks like a grizzled NBA veteran, despite only being a 20-year-old rookie. Then on top of those three, who are on base to be one of the best young big threes the NBA has ever seen, you have guys like De'Aaron Fox, who provides top-notch scoring and playmaking as a veteran presence, Keldon Johnson, who just won his first career Sixth Man of the Year award, Devin Vassell, who has truly become one of the best 3-and-D players in the entire NBA, Julian Champagnie, who is yet another top of his craft 3-and-D guy, and even some elite depth guys like rookie Carter Bryant and the super veteran Harrison Barnes. The only downside of this Spurs roster is at the backup center position, and that's if you're really stretching it. I don't know if it's just because he's not Victor Wembanyama or if he's just bad, but when Luke Cornett steps up to the scorer's table, the other team knows that they're about to go on a run. It was especially evident against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Just look at these numbers. When Victor Wembanyama was on the court against OKC, the Spurs were a plus 55, which is just insane in its own right. But that gets even more insane when you look at the alternative. When Victor Wembanyama sat and Luke Cornett came in, the Spurs were a minus 39. That's a 94-point difference. Luckily, Wemby and crew were good enough to make it past OKC despite that, but that is genuinely one of the most insane statistics I've ever seen. If San Antonio doesn't want a stressful series against New York, and if they want to win, they need to find a way to maximize the non-Wemby minutes, because that was genuinely their only main issue in the Western Conference Finals. Now that brings me to my prediction. Who do I think will walk away from the 2026 NBA Finals as champions? That's a super tough decision, but I think San Antonio walks away with the championship in 6 electric games, and it all comes down to one big reason why: Victor Wembanyama. I genuinely just don't think that New York has an answer for Wemby. I mean, nobody does, but especially New York. Whether they put Karl Anthony Towns on him or OG Anunoby or Mikal Bridges, Wemby is going to have a mismatch at all times offensively. Now, the new offense surrounding Cat could have positive implications for New York's offense if it means eliminating Wemby from plays, but at that point, I'm not so sure that Wemby won't just camp down low and let Devin Vassell guard Cat up top. That's what Mitch Johnson did in the Western Conference Finals, letting Vassell guard Chet and having Wemby down low against Isaiah Hartenstein. And look at how that turned out. Wemby is going to absolutely tear apart the New York Knicks defense, and I don't think that Jalen Brunson and the rest of the Knicks offense has what it takes to keep up with that, especially if Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, and De'Aaron Fox are contributing at a high level as well. If I'm right, this San Antonio team is going to go down as one of the best young teams in NBA history, if not the best, and will surely be the first ring of many in the Victor Wembanyama era. And this Knicks team will be known as the next great team that just fell short of greatness. Now, do you think the OKC Thunder are okay with the fact that they just lost in the Western Conference Finals? Absolutely not. And as a result of the Spurs making it to the finals, the Thunder are about to pull off the scariest trade in NBA history. A roster transaction that I could only compare to when Kevin Durant left the OKC Thunder to join the Golden State Warriors in the 2016 offseason.
Oh my God, do. Somebody let me know how you feel about this in the comment section, bro. I'm just as excited as everybody else. Do I think the Knicks are going to win? No. Do I feel like the Spurs are going to win the championship? Yes. Who don't want to see Wemby with a ring? Who don't want to see this young man holding that title, finals MVP? Would y'all rather see Brunson celebrating and he only 4'11", or would you rather see Wemby 7'8", 7'11", whatever, however tall he is, man, holding up the trophy for America? I think we all deserve that, man. Let me know what y'all think about this in the comment section below. And for you beautiful ladies out there,
risk my life to give you documentations, girl. I risk my life to give you documentations, girl. I risk my life to give you